שיר ליום השבוס, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבוס, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבוס, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבוס, the whole world is waiting.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Well, in case you haven't figured it out, folks, it's that time again.
Yes, you've entered into the Twilight Zone. The signpost ahead says, I don't know what it says, Frank. Help me out here.
Which way? Which way?
You thought you knew Torah, and then Chris and Frank are going to pose some questions to you.
And we're going to
Jesse's unable to be with us this week. We'll be here for a couple more weeks, and we're going on Sukkot, and I think we're going to extend our Sukkot for a couple of months, aren't we, Frank?
Yes, I am going to talk to Mark, and we're more than likely going to take a sabbatical for about 4 to 6 months.
Yes, we're going to go and relearn Torah on our own and come back after that sabbatical. Isn't that what a sabbatical is? Is 7?
Yeah, that's where you
go out and study and learn and get refreshed. Good.
Yeah, that's why it's called a sabbatical.
Ooh, that's Latin or Greek or I don't know, something for go out and study.
Yeah. What they did on Sabbath, sabbatical.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least that's what I'm thinking.
So what is this Torah portion this week?
I don't know. How do you pronounce that?
Kitetse.
Kitetse. Gesundheit. Oh, okay.
Yeah, as my brother-in-law used to say anytime he heard a language that he was unfamiliar with, and he always made fun of Hebrew for some reason, he would say Gesundheit, or if you do that here, you're going to have to clean it up. So
That's right.
So Ki Tetse, Ki Tetse, if you go out.
If you go out.
When you go out. If you go out. That's the name of our Torah portion. But my goodness, it starts out as when you go out, or if you go out, or how you go out, etc. However you want to translate that. We've got so many commandments here that we thought Shoftim was busy with commandments.
Well, it's on the heels of Shoftim, so you know.
Yeah, so it is kind of like a continuation of Shoftim, but it seems to take a different turn. And Frank and I, we were talking about this before the show, and I saw one common thread with every one of these commandments, every one of these teachings, every one of these mitzvot. The common thread in this for Kitetse is mercy. You're going to show mercy in the best situations and in the absolute worst. We have a man that has committed the most heinous of crimes that requires the death penalty, and after he is stoned or killed, then you hang him on the tree. But even here, in our Torah portion, we're told, show him mercy. Even in death? How do you show somebody that's dead mercy?
You don't leave him hanging on the tree.
You don't leave him hanging on the tree. And we go through so many things, and we end up at the very end with, and remember Amalek, kill him, erase Amalek from the face of the earth. What? Wait a minute. I thought this was all about mercy. How do we start off with?
Amalek did not have mercy upon us when we came out of the wilderness.
So we start out with, when you go to war and you find you come across a female that you desire, then you're going to show her mercy by doing all these things. And then within this Torah portion, we have the aspect of, and I've found so many Christians that want to accuse me of how hideous and barbarous the Old Testament was, how bad and judgmental, and it was a mean, vengeful God, because in Deuteronomy, right here in Deuteronomy, in this Torah portion, God tells us, take your son out and stone him if he's a bad boy. Well, that's not exactly what it says.
No, it's not.
But the rabbis come out and tell us that in this Torah portion, with this commandment of how do you take a rebellious child out, it once and for all deals with the whole situation of a parent does not have the right to kill their child, born or unborn. This is Judaism's answer to the abortion issue. A parent does not have the right to kill his own child, his or her own child, period. And it's with this teaching of taking and having him stoned. The parents can't do this. So we go through here, and we have the wife that is hated and the wife that is ahuva, or the wife that is loved. And then again, later on, we have the wife, after you marry her and consummate the marriage, now you find that you hate her. You just can't divorce her for no reason. I mean, there's so many things here. And what I found is the underlying aspect to this whole Torah portion is in everything you're going to do. Everything. You will show mercy. You will show respect, and you will show mercy. Even when we come to Amalek at the very end. And that might be a twist and a tie. So, Frank, what are we going to read? What are we going to discuss tonight?
Like I said, maybe the fourth portion. I think it kind of delves into almost everything.
Okay.
So
the fourth aliyah is Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 8 through 8 through 24? Yep, 8 through 24. Yeah. Okay.
So if you'll read, I'll do the blessing.
All right, we can do that.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 8. You shall not despise an Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not despise an Egyptian, for you were a sojourner in his land. Children who are born to them in the third generation may enter the assembly of the Lord. When a camp goes out against your enemies, you shall beware of everything that is evil. If there is among you a man who is unclean because of a nocturnal emission, he shall go outside the camp. He shall not come within the camp. And it shall be towards the evening he shall bathe in water. And when the sun sets, then he may return into the camp. And you shall have a designated place outside the camp so that you can go out there. You shall keep a stake in addition to your weapons, and it shall be, when you sit down to relieve yourself, you shall dig with it, and you shall return and cover your excrement. For the Lord your God goes along in your midst of your camp, to rescue you and to deliver your enemies before you. Therefore, your camp shall be holy, so that he should not see anything unseemly among you, and he would turn away from you. You shall not deliver a slave to his master if he seeks refuge with you from his master. Rather, he shall be allowed to you, reside among you wherever he chooses within all of your cities, where it is good for him. You shall not oppress him. There shall not be a prostitute of the daughters of Israel, and you shall not be a male prostitute of the sons of Israel. You shall not bring a prostitute's fee or the price of a dog to the house of the Lord your God for any vow, because both of them are an abomination to the Lord your God. You shall not give interest to your brother, whether it be interest on money, interest on food, or interest on any other item for which interest is normally taken. You may, however, give interest to the goyim, but to your brother you shall not give interest, in order that the Lord your God shall bless you in every one of your endeavors in the land which you are coming to possess. When you make a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay in paying it, for the Lord your God will demand it of you, and it will be counted as a sin for you. But if you shall refrain from making vows, you will have no sin. Observe and do what is emitted from your lips, just as you have pledged to the Lord your God as a donation, which you have spoken with your mouth.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah imet ikaye olam notabi tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Naaman.
Amen.
So you can't buy a puppy for the temple?
Yeah, this is a fun one, because here in the Torah, even as it's described and related, Jesus talking to the woman and saying that the dog can't be fed before the children are fed, and she says yes, but even the dogs get scraps from the table. It really does tie back to the teachings in the Midrashim on this Torah portion about the wages of a dog and the wages of a prostitute, and the wages of a dog of in context buying and selling non-Hebrew slaves or non-Jewish slaves. You make a profit on selling a non-Jewish slave. That's not allowed to come into paying a tithe on, nor is it allowed into the temple. And that's really one of the many teachings on this. And it's the crazy idea of calling a non-Jew a dog. So those that present an anti-Jewish take on the New Testament as well as the Old Testament, they will use this verse as well as what Jesus says to the non-Jewish woman, that sorry, I can't bless you, I can't heal you, I can't heal your daughter, because the things that I have are meant for Israel first. And then he kind of steps back and says, wow, I've not seen this type of faith in all of Israel. Go forth, your child is healed, because she admits her standing and her position when it comes to, and in light of the Messiah and the Messiah being from Israel and being Israel, she admits to this, and she's willing to humble herself in the aspect of at least Jesus's form of Judaism at that time,
Right.
and based on that, now her request is granted to her. It's a troubling verse all the way around, because we want to take it in the bad light, and that is she's equated to a dog.
But there's something else with this.
Yeah, what is that?
The thing is that the verses are next to each other, and it actually means that, okay, 18, you shall not be a prostitute of the daughters of Israel, and there shall be no male prostitute of the sons of Israel. You shall not bring a prostitute's fee or the price of a dog to the house of the Lord your God for any vow, because both of them are an abomination to the Lord. That's what they would call a male prostitute, as a dog.
A dog, yes, and that is the hardline view on this, or the hardline ruling on this, is that a male prostitute is a dog, and they go into describing, explaining why a male prostitute is considered a dog. And I've always found it interesting and odd that when you look at the word for dog, I'm not going to go into it.
Well, no,
we're going way off on what you and I wanted to discuss tonight, but
right, the real basic idea of a dog is faithful, true, but there's always another side or a flip side to it, because of a dog's generations of where they came from. They came from wild animals, and they were domesticated. But this just says, the price of a dog. That's saying that if you're not following the commandments of the Lord, because obviously, if a male prostitute is not following the commandments, that is not accepted. It's an abomination. So, what is it? Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo, is not accepted.
Yeah, there's so many plays on the word, but even the word itself, kaliv, it means big-hearted or loyal.
Right.
And then you go into the nuances of how you treat a dog,
right?
A kaliv, and anyways, so what is it we really want to talk about tonight?
Well, I don't know, Brian. What are we going to talk about tonight? Sorry, I can't. Every time you say that, I can't help but do that. The truth of who you shall not despise. An Edomite, he's your brother. An Egyptian, you were a sojourner. The Egyptians enslaved us, but yet we were a sojourner. Huh?
So you're saying you shall not despise an Edomite, for he
Yeah.
is your brother. So he's from Edom or Esau. And you shall not despise an Egyptian. Wait a minute. Yeah. But at the end of our Torah portion, Frank, we talk about Amalek.
Yep.
Amalek, we're supposed to eradicate, erase,
Yep.
do away with entirely. But there's no commandment such as this for the Egyptians. The Egyptians, they didn't we go through like 10 plagues
Huh?
and
What?
this whole battle of the heavens and the
Yeah.
earth and everything going on here? But we can't hate or despise the
But
Egyptian?
your birth portion and my birth portion is the same, and Amalek is part of it, and we're like, we are supposed to eradicate Amalek from the face of the earth.
And then we go into here. Let's see. Children who are born to them in the third generation, they can come into the assembly of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 generations of Esau and 3 generations of the Egyptians, they can come into the assembly of the Lord, but we'll see that others, even to the 10th generation, cannot
Right.
come into the assembly of the Lord.
Which effectively means forever.
Yeah, I'm not getting this. I'm not following it, and honestly, you're taking me into a different road than what I studied and looked at today. So I'm not
I'm
prepared.
known for that.
Yeah, I'm not prepared for this one. We have a couple of places here where no generation they cannot make it in. Um, a what is the bastard? Because it's
Mamzir.
in this Mamzer.
Mamzir.
A mamzer is not allowed. A descendant of a mamzer is not allowed.
Right.
And we want to think a mamzer is someone that's born out of wedlock. It's even more than that in the Jewish perspective. Frank, do you remember the teaching on that one? What is a true mamzer?
True Mamzir is someone devoid of any education, any teaching, any upbringing in Judaism, what we would call Judaism.
Yeah, it is one the result of an illegal marriage.
Yes.
So if you're not allowed to marry this people or this tribe, really it's a non-Jewish people. If you're not allowed to marry them, then that offspring is not allowed into the assembly ever.
Right.
And that's a tough one. Now where we go back to with that one is going back to. Do you remember the 2 individuals that were stabbed through in an act of fornication right there before Moshe?
Zimri and Cosby.
Yes. And so had that have continued, it would have produced generations, period. I mean, multiple generations of mamzer. They're never allowed. This union will never come to life. It will never come to fruition of anything good, and therefore it's never going to be allowed. That union, that type of union, and it goes into more than just bloodlines, but everything about these 2 individuals coming together. These are not just star-crossed lovers here. This isn't Romeo and Juliet anymore. Goes way beyond that. This is her upbringing, your upbringing, and your revolt of your traditions in the Torah. You going purposely against that and marrying this in the face of that union will never produce anything viable for God. And so therefore it will always be forbidden. That is the heart of the mamzer. It's not just you were born outside of wedlock. Mamzer has nothing to do with being born outside of wedlock. 2 kids go out and cohabitate and have a child. That's not the true Torah definition of a mamzer. A mamzer is you're going against the teachings of Torah, and he or she is coming from a position that is idolatrous. And in that rebellious relationship, now we're talking to the heart of it. Both of you are in rebellion to God. The result of that
is death. Yeah.
So that's the mamzer. What else we got going on here?
What are we supposed to remember? It says, remember what Amalek did to you on the way out. But according to Halakha, you're supposed to remember at least 6 things after you do the Shema. I think it's after you do the Shema. After you do morning prayers, and then you do the Shema. I can't remember the order, but it's at least 6 things. But why? Why do we make these remembrances? I mean, we're supposed to remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. That we were.
Frank, let's pause for a second,
Okay.
because I did not have the YouTube loaded up, and we do have a question on
Oh, good.
on YouTube. In Deuteronomy chapter 23, the third portion, a man shall not take his father's wife, nor shall he uncover the corner of his father's cloak.
Right.
I'm not sure if that is a New American Standard Version. I'm not sure. Anyways, we'll go along with it. Uncover his father's cloak. And the question is this: can this be in reference to Noah when Ham violated his father? Also in Parashat Achri, the sixth portion, Leviticus 18, a man with injured testicles whose member is cut off may not enter into the symbol of the Lord, and that's repeated here in Deuteronomy as well, in Devarim.
Right.
How would this affect a male who had a vasectomy or a woman who's had a hysterectomy? Now, that is a great question, because a major form of birth control today through a lot of cultures is just that very thing of vasectomy or tying the tubes. A hysterectomy usually is a total hysterectomy is removing everything, and that is not done for birth control for most medical procedures. But tying the tubes, or gosh, I can't remember the medical procedure for that one is.
Don't know. It's
tubal
ligation.
Yeah, tubal ligation. There you go.
Okay.
Tubal ligation
Where
is where
did
you
I pull that from?
Yeah, I know, you're good.
Anyway,
the tubal ligation is actually cutting the tubes and cauterizing or folding them back over and then clamping them with different clamps.
Supposedly it's reversible.
Yeah, and both of them, the vasectomy. I know several people that have reversed the vasectomy. So I guess the heart of the question is this, and I'm assuming here, hopefully this person will chime back in to make sure that we're not misunderstanding. Is someone with a vasectomy or a female with a tubal ligation for the purpose of not having children, the purpose of reproductive limitations, we'll put it that way, is this equated to a man with testicles that are injured or his member that is cut? And are both of these equated to or have anything to do with uncovering your father's nakedness, such as what Ham did with Noah?
First thing, we must define, what does it mean, the assembly of the Lord? Because the assembly of the Lord, as it's defining, is the Levites going into the Mishkan to do service, etc. So,
but if it's going to be that finite, then that's equated only to the Cohen, which are part of only the Leviim or the Levites.
right. And it's only the Leviim that are actually able to go do certain services and carry certain things when they move the Mishkan. So
the Midrashim as well as Talmud, they agree that the assembly of the Lord really delves into even the greater context of this Torah portion. We're really talking about those that are residing within the camp of Israel, those that are gathered around. So you're either in the camp, the assembly of the Lord, or you're outside of the camp. I've got gnats flying around me. Outside of the camp. So if you have certain violations or certain uncleanliness, you're not allowed inside the camp. And in context, that's what this talk is talking about. Someone with injured testicles or a cut genitals, they're not allowed inside the camp. They can travel. They're not allowed inside the camp.
So the other thing is that
go ahead.
it's stated is when a person reaches age of 50, they can no longer do the service, they retire, right? Those who are injured cannot do the service, cannot do anything in the Mishkan, but they can still eat from the table if they are a Levite.
Okay, so you're saying that someone that, for purposes of birth control, whether male or female, they've had a medical procedure done so that they can no longer procreate. That person is not allowed inside the temple.
Yes, he's not
Okay,
allowed inside
but
the area of the town.
everything else is good for them. So if we are traveling in the wilderness and we have the Mishkan there in the middle, only the Levites are allowed inside the inner circle, anyways. The only
Correct.
time you can come in is to bring in a sacrifice.
Right.
So if you're not allowed to bring your sacrifice before the tent of meeting or before the Mishkan, you can't present it to the Levim, the Kohen, the priests. Then where does that leave you? In
That
a
leaves you.
perpetual, it leaves you in a perpetual unclean state, which eventually you'll have to be removed even from the camp,
Yeah.
unless you can live a sin-free life, which Christianity says that's an impossibility. Torah tells us, no, it's very possible. It's not that far away from you. It's here, it's on
Jesus
your tongue,
told
it's
us,
in your hearts.
all these things I have done, you can do and more.
Yeah.
So, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Even Jesus says that is everything I've done and the way I live, you can live, and
exactly.
you can be. So, so where does that leave us with that one?
If it's for health reasons, that's one thing. If it's for strictly, birth control, well, you're not allowed in the Mishkan. That's all I can say for sure. Everything else, you, with
Yeah,
God, all things are possible.
and let's be clear. Frank and I are not rabbis.
No, we're not.
We're not. We're just explaining what we know, what we've
Right.
studied. So if we have, and this individual's come back and said, okay, so what if it's not for birth control, but it was done in the aspect of saving a life? And specifically, where we'd see this is a hysterectomy for a woman.
Correct.
There are certain diseases and certain ailments that come across that a woman has no other choice, or is at least directed by
Correct.
medical profession, of a partial hyst or a total hyst, a total
Right.
hysterectomy or partial hysterectomy.
Things like
And
endometriosis and things like that, that
yeah,
get out of hand. Yes. Now, in that case, they would be as if they were a member of the Levite family. They can't do any of the service, but they can still eat from the table. So everything that's given to the priest and everybody can still eat from the table.
and with that one, I would say let's be a little bit more specific with what our verse is saying. It's speaking about males,
Yes.
not females.
Right. It is.
And even with that, and let me give you a little background on where I'm going with this. Is only the husband is required to go through a mitzvah, to go through the mikvah after sexual relations with his wife.
Or nocturnal emission, as it says in this portion.
Yeah, so nocturnal emission is one thing, but let's be specific here with reproduction and the marital aspect. I have relations with my wife. I'm the one that's required to go through a mikveh, not my wife, according to Torah. The woman does not go through a mikveh. So the aspect is the spilling of the seed, or the emission that comes forth, and so therefore the nocturnal emission.
Right.
And so we're looking at the reproductive aspects of this. And I don't want to get too vulgar with it. I've taught this and explained this to a lot of teenagers in the past and young adults in the past. Of there's a reason the male has an Audi and the female has an innie, and I'm trying to be very careful with this. I'm not trying to be funny.
I
I'm
know.
not. I'm not. And we go back to the
We're
creation
going for the
series.
G rating.
Yeah, we go back to the creation series where um, God tells the earth to do certain things, and the earth produces these things. The earth is filled with the seed, or filled with the egg. And we'll get into this egg in just a minute with the bird and the nest. But the earth is filled with the eggs, but those are unfertilized eggs. They're sitting in a state in stasis, waiting for the potential to happen. The potential happens from the masculine or the male aspect. And we're talking about aspects here, masculine and feminine aspects. Every other language except for the English language has masculine, feminine, and even the German language at least goes into the neutered aspect. So the sun is a masculine, but the moon is feminine. Why? Because the sun forces or produces it bear with me here, it penetrates and produces a reflection of itself upon the moon. So therefore the moon receives, and a woman is always considered and viewed as the vessel. Now if the vessel is broken, if the vessel is hurt in some type of way, in this aspect a hysterectomy, in order to save the life, there's no ruling.
Right.
There is no ruling here.
Right.
The other aspect is the proactive aspect is the masculine side, being proactive and being the forceful, the action within as opposed to the receiving. Gosh, my words are escaping me. Use your words, Chris.
Pronounce your R's, will
yeah,
you?
yeah. The vessel receives, but the action is from the giving, and that's why we see God as being both masculine and feminine. That's why we see in the creation series is in the beginning. God created Adam male and female. They were both. Adam was both masculine and feminine. It was only whenever Adam saw that he could not procreate like a worm would, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
I'm throwing out things here.
Asexual.
That God saw that this was good. There has to be an act of giving and an act of receiving equally. It has to be an equal share in the receiving and the giving. And that goes through the whole aspect. We're going through the creation series again, which is so important that we really study the first 4 chapters. I would say the first 2 chapters, but first 4 chapters of Genesis explains everything else that is to follow. But so for the female not being able to produce the egg, it's immaterial.
Right.
It's immaterial. Sarah couldn't produce an egg, but yet there was a miracle that allowed her to produce an egg and it become fertilized. Rebecca couldn't produce an egg, but yet the miracle was provided so that she could produce the egg and be fertilized. From the female aspect of a hysterectomy, total or partial, it's irrelevant to this Torah portion. I guess I could have cut to the chase and said that from the beginning.
Well, yeah.
It's irrelevant to this because it's from the proactive side of the giving, and the sexual nature and the sexual desire really, though it's not absent from the female. God knows, I've been married for 30 plus years. I know that the desires are there on both sides. But
5 kids. 5 kids.
yeah,
People.
5 sons. But the aspect of procreation and how it can be misused, and how it can be tainted and how it can be misdirected is usually from the giving side, more from the receiving side. The receiving side is a result of the absence of receiving, as opposed to the giving side, which is not the absence of someone there to receive. It's more played out in the forcing my nature upon you, forcing the masculine upon you. Which
you got me triggered here. When the sun is forcing itself upon a moon, I mean, that's it.
But that's the nature of it, is to give, and the nature of the moon is to receive and reflect.
I'm being irreverent.
No, you're absolutely correct. It's when we get into this Torah portion of different categories of rape and types of rape, when we get into we get into the psychology of both the masculine and feminine as we go through not only Shoftim, last Torah portion, but this one as well, and we delve into that psychology of the aspect of what is the motivating factor behind this movement, this action that's being.
May I pose a question to you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. In the case of a man forcibly lying with a woman in the city, both of them are put to death. What if the woman was mute and couldn't scream?
Okay, yeah, and can God create a rock so large that even He can't move it? I mean, it's a non-question because that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing,
True.
like I said, with the psychological aspect,
No,
the
but the
philosophical
Talmudic
insight.
idea is that she couldn't scream, therefore she is innocent.
And that is the answer. Is if she's unable to, it doesn't
Right.
go into saying that she's mute. It's that she can't, for whatever reason, whether her screams are blocked by her attacker or anybody else, or for whatever reason she cannot scream out, then she is innocent. Yes, and that's where it's really fun when you delve into Talmud. It really goes more into psychology and philosophy and the legal aspects of what's happening here, more so than just some religious feeling or religious fervor. Talmud really takes this extremely serious,
Yes.
to the minutia, and sometimes I get boggled down in the minutia and just want to throw it all away. But it's fascinating when we go into it. We're getting off
Yeah.
course and off topic
Well,
here.
actually,
Well,
we're
I hope
hitting
I
different
answered.
parts of it. We are.
Yeah, I hope
So,
I answered. Oh, the person said thank you for the clarification.
yeah.
I hope that made some type of sense to you. I really do. Um, Within our westernized culture and our westernized take, sometimes we get hung up on a sexuality of a thing when the Torah is not caught up in the sexuality of it as much as it's caught up in the design and the purpose of things. Are we misusing the purpose of this?
Right. I mean,
Um,
okay, on your line, misusing the purpose of this. You shall not plow with a donkey and an ox.
ah, you know what? You didn't bring that up in our our
Well, no, I
pre-show.
didn't. But you stirred a thought in my mind because that's a misuse of. Now, if it was two donkeys, that's one, or if it's two oxen, that's one. But when you mix up, then you're not doing justly by one of the animals. I would say the donkey because the ox is much stronger. So you're misusing the thing that God has given you to use to make a field, to make food, to make to raise a family with. You know,
Yeah, and that's the whole not being unequally yoked. And even with that, sometimes we misunderstand the actual purpose of a donkey and an ox. They have different purposes. Um, uh, you can plow a field with a donkey, but the best instrument to use would be the ox to plow a field, not a donkey. A donkey can carry a burden, where an ox can carry a burden just as easily, and in some cases more easily. The donkey is made to carry, whereas the ox is made to pull. And are we misusing, whether it be the gifts or the things that are given to us, are we misusing our tools? How many times have I used a screwdriver as a chisel?
I
I mean, seriously, Frank, you know
know.
this.
So have
We've
I.
all,
So have I.
if you're a man, you've done this.
If I
But a
can't
screw,
find my little quarter-inch chisel, there's
yeah,
a common head
but
screwdriver.
but the screwdriver's not designed to be a chisel, and as soon as I use it as a chisel, guess what? I've just messed up either the handle or the blade of my screwdriver, and now I've got to go to the grinder.
Yep.
I've got to do certain things because I've misused my tools, the things that are given to me to produce good, and but we also have a different thing, and this is always a fun one. The different teachers and the rabbis that go through and say that let's look at the nature of these animals. One chews the cud and is kosher, the other does not chew the cud and is not kosher. Oh, so as that ox is just pulling as it's designed to do, it will regurgitate and start chewing the cud. But the donkey is a little bit more selfish and a little bit more stubborn. And if you've seen dogs and donkeys and other animals that are around, animals that do regurgitate, and as soon as that dog or the donkey sees an animal chewing, he thinks there's food around. He wants to eat, but he's harnessed, he's tied up. He's not allowed to eat, but he sees the ox next to him eating. How is that right or fair to the donkey in the slightest? This isn't so much about being unequally yoked as they're not equals. This is the aspect of, again, showing mercy. You just harnessed an animal that will regurgitate and chew its cud as it's working. It looks like it's eating, which it is. It's just regurgitating and eating again and swallowing again. But you're tying that to an animal that is constantly wanting its own way. How unfair is that to the donkey? The donkey looks over and sees this animal eating, but it doesn't have food. It's going to look at you of being the unjust master. Where's the mercy? Where's the grace? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense as far as why someone would do it. You know, what you're saying makes sense, but what, the actual action of hooking up one and the other doesn't make any sense, not
Yeah.
logically or anything.
Yeah, why someone would do it? To out of why would I use my screwdriver as a chisel? Why would I?
Because it was at hand.
Why would I misuse my sons, my daughters, my wife, my mother, my father? Why would I misuse these things? Why would I demand or ask of them something that is not of their nature, not of their position? Because I'm selfish, because I'm prideful, because I'm more concerned about myself than the proper application of things, the purpose behind the things that are around us, using the proper tools and utensils, as well as using the proper people in their positions in the places that they are. I mean, we're caught up in a world that we just didn't just, but we elected a businessman, a billionaire, someone that's inherited money. We've elected him as our president to run our country. He's not a politician. He's not a statesman. He makes deals. And then we want to judge him based on politicians and statesmen
Who don't know how to make deals.
Well, whether they do or not, I'm just saying that
Yeah, I know.
that he's the man for the time, I guess. I'm not saying I'm for or against him. I'm just saying that we want to judge him against what? The proper tool, but we didn't put the proper tool in place, or at least what we think is the proper tool. What
There
we
you go.
have,
That's
what
correct.
we have is a tool, and you're requiring him to stop using his Twitter account. Guys, he does television shows. He does things. He is very verbose and very narcissistic. Why would you expect him to be humble and statesmanlike? That's not what you elected.
We're given the ruler that God puts in place.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And again, I'm not for or against.
No, I'm not saying that.
The current president. It has nothing to do with that. Is we're judging. We wanted an ox, but we got a donkey, and you say, donkey, don't be eating grass while you plow? Are you serious? That's not his nature. You're using the wrong tool, or at least you're using the wrong criteria against the wrong tool. And that's kind of as we go through this whole Torah portion, we see that.
You got an elephant instead of a donkey, so maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but okay.
We've got so many things in this Torah portion. Goodness. So I was going to look at this whole strange thing about shooing away a bird.
Yeah.
Let's look at that one real quick.
Okay, yeah.
Where is that?
There's 6 and 7. It's 22, 6 and 7.
Oh wow! Yes, it was. I was scrolling, going way too down. So after we talk about, let's stop here for just a second.
Okay.
In our first aliyah, the first portion, chapter 21, verse 15. If a man has two wives, one ahuva, beloved, and the other I'm gonna have to find it so I can read it.
Okay, the one hated and the one loved.
Yeah, Ahuva ve'achat senua, which is hated. Oddly enough, this word senua is nesua, is only used in one other place prior to this Torah portion, but everything about this verse and the next couple of verses remind us of someone. If a man has two wives, one achuva, beloved, and the other nesua, despised or hated, and they bear him sons, the beloved one and the despised one, both of them bear sons, and the firstborn happens to be from the despised one. Verse 16, then it will be on the day that the husband bequeaths his property to his sons, that he will not be able to give the son of the beloved wife the birthright precedence over the son of the wife, which is the real firstborn, Bechor, the first Bechor, the real Bechor. Rather, he must acknowledge, it's an interesting word used here, he must acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the despised wife, the hated
Yeah.
wife, and give him a double share in all that he possesses, because he, the firstborn son, is the first of his strength. Then he
Right.
has the
Oh, wait a
birthright
second.
entitlement. So who does this sound like, Frank?
If only Reuben hadn't put his bed with his stepmother, well, slave, concubine. You
But
know,
on his deathbed, what did Jacob say?
you are the first of my
You are
strength, but
my
you are like water.
first, you are the first of my strength. It's the same words. You are the first of my strength.
Yeah,
He says that of Reuben on his deathbed after the whatever sin that Reuben committed.
right. But he said he was like water.
But what did he do with Joseph, the firstborn of his beloved wife?
Mhm.
Rachel was the hated wife.
No, Leah.
I'm sorry, Leah.
Yeah,
It says Rachel he loved, but Leah he
hated.
nesua,
Yeah.
hated. The same words used here. Now, what did the sons do? They were always envious of poor Joey. Poor Joey. He just had this multicolored coat or corded coat, whatever it is.
He was
What
on
is?
Broadway, right?
Yeah, he's got this coat, and Dad loves him. He's Dad's favorite. You know what? Parents don't try not to show favoritism. We really don't. But there are kids that we just have a different feeling towards than our other kids. I mean, whether it be my first or last born, everyone is special in my eyes. Every single one of them special. But there is one kid in our family out of the five who is everybody's favorite. He makes us laugh. He makes us question. He makes us ponder. He's everybody's favorite. That doesn't mean I love him more than any of my other
Right.
sons. But he's just he's that son of my old age. He really is. I mean,
Yeah,
I was in my
he's your
40s when he
Benjamin.
was born. His name was Oops for the first 2 years of his life. It was he's that kid. But there's something about this kid that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Everybody does, not just us, but everybody loves this kid.
Well, even the grandparents. The grandparents
Yeah.
looked at
Oh,
me as the favored one in the family.
yes,
I was
yes.
the firstborn male child of any of their progeny. So
So, what's some of the things that we see here? We see that Joseph is obviously Dad's favorite, and Joseph is given a special coat.
yep.
But when we see what the sons do with the coat, ah,
Excuse me.
and I don't have it pulled up. Darn me for not having that pulled up and ready for this. But if you actually look, and I think it's Genesis chapter 37, and we look at this, we see that the sons take the coat off of Joseph and the multicolored coat. And even Rashi questions this. Go back to 37 and read it slowly. Why is this coat mentioned twice? He has two coats, says Rashi. And this is a take on it. The idea, though, behind what Rashi is saying, and even the Ramban agrees with this, is the idea is that Yosef was given the double portion. And what do the brothers do? They dip the coat and they bring it back and they ask Dad, examine this. What's in our Torah portion? The father is to examine all that he has when he comes to give the double portion to the firstborn. The rabbis teach this. Everything that happens in Genesis is going to be expounded upon and given to us in a legal format in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Actually, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. Deuteronomy is a wrap-up of all of it. So everything that happens in Genesis is going to be expounded upon in a legal matter in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers.
That is so weird.
So what we're seeing here is God's legal determination. Jacob, you had 2 wives. You were used as an example for the entire world, from creation until the end of mankind. You were used as an example as to why we don't do it this way.
Right.
You don't have one wife that you love and one wife that you hate. And if you find yourself in this situation, because sometimes we just can't control our heart, we fall in and out of love. God, don't you love that phrase? I'm in love, and I've fallen out of love, or whatever. I loved that car whenever I was 16. Now I can't stand it when I'm 20. Whatever we emotionally attach ourselves to, and we're seeing here a couple of things of marriage of convenience, marriage of
we have the Levirate marriage in this portion too.
Marriage that's directed upon us, and then marriage of emotion. And however you term yourself, and however you define yourself, however you come into this situation. For that matter, I tried to bring this up one time after I came back from Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, that certain tribes, it's very common to have multiple wives. Polygamy is acceptable and okay. However, in Islam, there is a ruling, and this isn't Sharia. This is the true rulings from the Quran. Is that if you have multiple wives, anytime you give a dowry to the second, the third, the fourth wife, then you must give an equal dowry to your first wife. In other words, you give a dowry to your first wife of 1 gold ring and 1 diamond ring and 2 golden earrings, and you find a second wife and you want to marry her, and you give her a beautiful dress. That's her dowry. You have to give a beautiful dress to your first wife. You find a third wife, and now you give her 2 golden earrings and a beautiful dress. Guess what? You give 2 golden earrings and a beautiful dress to your first wife. And the point within Islam is this, and I find it fascinating because I think it is based on the background and the insight of Torah, and that is you're never to diminish or overrule your first love. So husbands in America and in the westernized world, your first love was that 1968 Camaro or Mustang or 64.5 Mustang. Was it 64.5?
63.5 was the very first. My favorite was 67.
Yeah. And so my first car was a 1970 Chevelle Malibu Super Sport, and the bestest, greatest car ever come out of Detroit. But nonetheless, whatever my first love I think was, as soon as I get married, that becomes your first love.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to spend money on another love. It must be equated in worth to your wife.
And according to Islam, the first wife has a veto over the second, third, and fourth.
Yeah, but and that's going into some nuances here. What I'm
Right,
getting to is
right.
the heart of it is that whatever you're chasing in life, whatever you fall in love with, guess what? Your first spouse, which is your wife, takes precedence. You're going to spend money on that car, on that motorcycle, on that boat, on the fishing trip, whatever it may be. It cannot be at the expense of your wife. You must give something of equal value to your wife. And I'm just using the Afghan and the Quran and Islamic ruling on this, an idea of perspective. They use it very literal and use it with actual humans. What I'm trying to do here is show that whether it be your husband or your wife in a marital relationship, once you start finding another love that you want to chase, you cannot neglect your equal, which is your spouse,
Right.
in
And
anything you're doing: house, job, career, boat, whatever it may be. You cannot neglect your spouse. Wives, you still must honor and respect. Husbands, you still must show she has equal value or greater value than anything you're chasing today. And I'm getting way off on what we're talking
well,
about
no, what I
here.
wanted to say is the Sephardic groups, especially in like Morocco, they believe in polygamy, and it's the same way. The Quran was a rip-off of Torah, is my opinion. Okay, because they claim to do the same things, and they claim this and they claim that, but where did they get it? They got it from Jacob. They got it uh, 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 from Abraham. They got it from uh, um, laughter. What laughter? Laughter. The middle one, the one in the middle. Because of that, Isaiah. No, not Isaiah. Ah, jeez.
I'm, I'm lost. I'm not sure where you're going with this. Go
Who
ahead.
was after Abraham? Abraham's son.
Oh, Isaac,
Isaac.
Okay.
Laughter.
Oh,
Laughter.
now I know what you.
Yeah.
I apologize. I
Right.
didn't know where
So
you're going
they
with
learned it from those. They keep saying we are a son of Ishmael. Well, they took all of that from Judaism, from Torah, actually. So, and then they did a few other things. But hey, but yeah, we're not supposed to take away or diminish in any way possible your first marriage. Now, according to Torah, he was tricked, but okay, maybe, but you know,
So yeah, so we see that with Jacob, he's got a problem here. He's got two wives: one that he loves, one that he worked for, one that he was tricked into marrying, and she becomes the one that he despises. Then he gets the one that he loves. However, she doesn't produce, and Leah does produce a child, and it's Reuben. And we see in Parsha Vayiki where Jacob gives a blessing to his children, and this blessing is Kochi. You are my power. Verishitoni, you're the first of my strength, which is exactly what we're talking about here. It's the same poetry that's examined here. But yet then we go into this Yakir, Yamatse Lo. What are these phrases that in Hebrew we're recognizing that Yakir, do you recognize? Have you searched? Have you examined? Have you gone through and found everything in your inheritance? That's what it says in our Torah portion. You're supposed to go through and examine your inheritance before you give it to your firstborn. And we see that Jacob's sons come up to him and says, Yakir, look at this, examine this garment. Is this the double portion that you gave to Joseph?
mm,
And that's what I find fascinating about how the Torah is written is we have a story and we treat it as a story. Oh, so many times we treat those as stories and not life lessons. And then we juxtapose it upon the actual Torah, and the Torah says, you're not to do this. Where did we see this before? It's obvious it was with, with Joseph and Reuben. Reuben was the firstborn. Yes, he did something wrong. But the troubles were, Yaakov, you treated the firstborn of the one you loved, and you gave him the double portion, even with the whole idea of the Haker Nad. I'm sorry. What's I wish Jesse were here. The coat, the word for the coat that he's wearing is
Oh,
the brothers take off his coat, and then they take the coat of many colors. Within that, we see that there's a double portion already given. It's almost as if, and I'm bringing something here that may not be relevant or may not be actual with our Torah portion or the Torah, and it's almost as if the brothers all had a family coat. We all wore this garment that had the coat of arms, our coat of arms. It had a lamb, or it had a stag, or it had a lion, or whatever. We have the colors of our family, the banner of our family. But Joseph had another coat on top of that. And however you want to interpret this, it's a coat of cords. It was corded coat.
right.
It was
Or ribbed.
ribbed, because that's the actual translation. Is it's a ribbed coat, or it's a coat of many colors. Regardless, this is the coat of the firstborn,
Right.
and that's really what the Torah is trying to tell us. Joseph had the family coat, but he also had the coat of the firstborn. He had a double portion. And the brothers are bringing that second portion to his father and saying, Father, was it right that you gave Joseph the double portion? Wow.
Mm.
What a tie into our Torah portion.
You know what I
Yeah.
find amazing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Reuben, even though he was taken away from being the firstborn in his father's eyes, still tried to save Joseph. Wasn't a very strong man, but he still tried to save Joseph.
Yeah, and Reuben is the one that cried whenever he found that Joseph was gone, and so we
Right.
see Reuben is though he was the true firstborn, but he was the firstborn of the unloved mother, and we see the Torah here telling us that it's not his fault
Right.
who he is born to, so you don't treat him less than. In fact, because he was the firstborn,
Right.
he gets the double portion. And so we see some things going on. The uh, uh, the uh, so many things of what I wanted to go through with this.
Yeah.
The ketelnet, the coat itself,
Right.
their stripes, and actually it is they strip him of his coat and they take off his special coat, and that's the translation of that I was looking for earlier. They strip him of his coat and they take off his special coat. There's the two coats, the double portion, and Rashi has a problem with why mention this twice? Why mention this coat twice? And Rashi delves into there was two coats, not one, and so we have the double portion. And what our Torah portion is here is forcing us to go back to that horrible, horrible time of Dad, you had two wives. And the result of how you treated the offspring of those two wives caused a horrendous problem. And the Torah is saying to us today,
Don't do it.
don't do it. I mean, the Torah doesn't forbid having two wives. You're going to have two loves. You're going to have multiple loves throughout your life. But that first one, you have an obligation to. That first one, You made words, you made proclamations, and even in this Torah portion, you're going to make a vow and you're going to keep it. It's better that you don't even make a vow at all than to make a vow and break it.
Right.
Wow, where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, we read the Torah from
Thank you.
the
Yes,
end.
we know.
Yeah, we always those coming from Christianity. We
Yeah.
read the Torah backwards.
Yeah.
We read Jesus' words before we understood the Torah, but it was always here.
Right.
And we still come back with that underlying aspect of there's mercy here. We go into the bird.
Yeah.
You happen upon a bird in its most vulnerable state, and that is the hen or the mother bird. The most opportune time to catch a bird is when it's a hen protecting its nest. All of the times, I dare you, go out and catch a bird. Not with a shotgun. Go out with a net. Go out with it, your bare hands. Go out with anything. Try to catch a bird. You're not going to do it. But when that bird is protecting its nest or its young and it's coming back to feed the young, the Torah says here, and this is where a certain teacher years ago said, this is the least commandment. The least commandment is shoo away the mother bird. Then you can have the young ones or the eggs. And this is considered the least commandment within Judaism as well. But there's two schools of thought. One says, don't drive any genealogy to extinction. Any genealogy, even the very least, which would be considered birds. But the other school of thought is, oh, how horrible it is for a parent to witness the death of their own child. Don't ever let it be on your hands, the death of that child, even to the extent of a bird.
Mm-hmm. So how do we wrap all this up? Because we're already at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We are at the bottom of the hour. I wanted to go on with the bird, and I was really longing to get into Amalek. Amalek. Yeah, how do we wrap it up? I don't know, Frank. I say that this whole Torah portion is about how we treat each other.
Yeah.
Whether within the community or outside of the community, we treat everyone with mercy and with grace.
Right, because it's directly on the heels of Shoftim. So
yeah, the underlying aspect of every commandment in this Torah portion is you're to treat everyone, whether they're inside your community or outside your community, whether they're Jew or Gentile, whether they're Christian or non-Christian. I don't care what your flavor of the month is. You treat them all with respect. You treat them with mercy and grace.
Right.
And this brings us to the troubling aspect of Amalek and the Holocaust. Why did we not stand up? Maybe because of this Torah portion, that overriding aspect of you cannot kill Amalek outside of the land. You must be in the land. There's 3 commandments regarding the land. 3 primary commandments. There's multiple regarding once we get into the land, but 3 primary ones. Number 1, you will establish a king. That is a commandment. Most people think that that's a negative thing. You don't have a king. No, that's not. You're misreading the Torah. You will establish a king. You will build the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, and you will eradicate the memory of Amalek. Amalek? Why is Amalek here? We're talking about mercy in this Torah portion, but yet we end it with eradicate Amalek. Why? Because Amalek showed no mercy when you were your weakest. And that's exactly what Moshe says. Amalek came and preyed upon the stragglers, the slow, the old, the young, even all of you. Everybody was weakened. You were in a weakened state. What did we just come out of? Oh yeah, we complained about food and water, and we didn't have it, and now we're heading off to the mountain to get the commandments. We are in our most weakened state. We have no positive commandments that we've kept. We've grumbled about God. We've grumbled about Moshe. We're without food, without water. We've learned our lesson. We are in our weakest state. Have you ever been in that position where you feel like everything you've tried has been destroyed? No matter what you do, no matter what you say, it's taken wrong, it's twisted, it's taken out of context, you're beaten up on, your car breaks down, the refrigerator stops, the house catches fire. I don't care what it is. Have you been in that situation where you think this is your most weakest, most vulnerable state? You are that bird that's just trying to hold on to your eggs and your chicks. You're in the most vulnerable state, and a Moloch comes and attacks. Your congregation now starts slandering you. Your preacher, your teacher, your rabbi, your best friends come against you. You have nothing around you. You're in your weakest state. And Torah says, when you come into the land, you're to eradicate that idea of never take advantage of someone that is in a weakened position. Never do that. Eradicate that thought, that lifestyle, that mentality. You're to eradicate this so that the weak will always be taken care of. So those that are preyed upon are protected. So that when you're hungry and you're walking through a field, you can take what you need, but you're not going to harvest it for your benefit.
Right.
You're
Okay.
going to be taken care of with mercy and with grace will you treat each other. Mercy and grace was always part of Torah. It didn't just come about because somebody named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John started writing some things 100 years after Jesus was killed. That wasn't a new thing. It always was.
Right.
Treat
Well,
each other with mercy and grace. That's my recap
okay.
of the whole Torah portion.
I can't argue with it. That's for sure. So, all right. So we're gonna go up until like the 20th, somewhere in the 20th. So we'll be here next week, I think, and maybe the week after, and then we're gonna, like flake out for a while. So, but we're needing it. So it's just to recuperate, get our thoughts back in line, and maybe get a little bit deeper so we can find out more about the Torah and share that with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember that we're focusing on the Torah and a perspective that some may not be getting. It's not that we're against anything other than we're for Torah.
Right. So, Shavua Tov, Laila Tov, Lahith Rot. I'm Frank.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Yeah, he is, but we'll see you again. Shabbat.
Mizmor, shir, shir leyom hashabos. 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 The whole world is waiting.
In broadcast.
And broadcast. It's already